All right, let's go live to the US, where our guest is political commentator Stephen Hendricks, who's a former public official and diplomat with the Obama, the Trump and the Biden administrations. Stephen, thanks so much for joining us tonight. I just want to get a sense from you. I mean, this is no ordinary election result, is it? Many people are saying this is perhaps the most incredible political comeback of all time. Is that exaggeration, or is that pretty accurate?
Well, I think we were on a knife's edge, 50-50 for a number of months. This could have gone either way. And when the Biden campaign, when Joe Biden had his presidential debate that was so disastrous, I think the Democrats did, they scrambled, they substituted candidates, and they made a run for it. But you really have to tip your hat to Donald Trump. He came through tonight.
How much of this do you think comes down to those shy Trump voters? Because, of course, as we were talking about, I was talking to you on Sunday night, you know, the polling was showing that things were very close, but it was all within the margin of error. The result you've seen today, winning not only the Electoral College, but the popular vote, which is, of course, not even what happened to Trump in 2016. How much of that comes down to people who perhaps weren't open about the fact they were going to support Trump, but when push came to shove, they thought, no, I have to do my bit for the country?
Well, the shy Trump voter was a theory of in the Hillary campaign, and it came about because the pollsters theorized after the fact that people might have been embarrassed to say that they were supporting him because of racist ideology, because of whatever, and that they came out. I think this time around, people weren't shy about their support for him, so I'm not sure it was the shy voter. I think partly it was that Kamala Harris was the candidate of the status quo. Her campaign slogan, "We're not going back." But Trump was the candidate of change. And I think a lot of the voters saw that the economy was not where they wanted it to be. Inflation was too high, gas prices, the grocery bill, the malaise on the southern border, the immigration issues. They wanted to see some change, and they came through. In particular, it was the Latino vote that really came through, and the youth vote that really came through for President Trump. You have to tip your hat to his organization and to the grassroots organizations that he brought together in a coalition to drive this home. Kudos to his team. Whatever side of the debate you're on, you have to tip your hat to the guy that came up with a successful campaign. And this was a victory for all Americans in that we went to the polls, we voted, we have a result, and congratulations to the winner.
Stephen, congrats on once again being in a red state. About 20 minutes before we came to air, Wisconsin was called for Trump. You were blue yesterday, you're red today. I'm sure you can still feel your quality of life just going through the roof as that announcement took place. But what's the vibe like there on the ground? Obviously, Wisconsin is more historically a blue-leaning state. Have you begun to see the Democrat meltdown there in Wisconsin?
Well, Reince Priebus, former chief of staff for President Trump from Wisconsin, Tommy Thompson, our famous Republican governor here. So we've had a long line of a great tradition on both sides. The Republican Party began in Ripon, Wisconsin. But we also have the long tradition of the progressive movements, which inspired Teddy Roosevelt and others. So this is a very political state. It has great traditions on both sides. I think the mood in the state is it's 5 o'clock in the morning and most people are asleep. When the polls closed last night here in Waupaca, Wisconsin, we as a community, we went to an ecumenical church service at the local Episcopal Church and prayed for America and our leadership. At that time, we did not know who it would be. But as a community, Republicans, Democrats, we still got together and prayed for the well-being of our country.
Stephen, I have to ask you, how are the Democrats going to explain this result? Because for months now, they've told us Trump is Hitler, and yet it seems like Hitler increased his share of the Jewish vote, the black vote, and the minority vote. How do the Democrats explain that?
Yeah, I think there's going to be some recriminations and soul searching in the DNC for some time now. We got into our country got into this situation by with Joe Biden being the incumbent, and we really didn't have a open primary process. That will not be the case 4 years from now. The Democrats will have an open field, and on the Republican side, I suspect the same. Because Trump will have exhausted his 2 terms of office. And so I think this will be an interesting time for both parties to come up with a new set of candidates for 4 years from now. But that's a long time in the future. Right now, I think we savor the moment. This was a civic party, if you will. A time for all Americans to come together at the polling stations. When I went to vote, I saw my neighbors and friends in line voting from both parties. We all shook hands. We talked a little bit as we were waiting in line, and it's a magic moment in a democracy when we have that privilege.
When we talk about that minority vote, I mean, Harris got, on the current numbers, 56% of the Hispanic vote compared to 63% for Biden. And you would have thought, Donald Trump, the man who wants to stop people coming over the Mexican border, that they would have rushed to Harris. But of course, that didn't happen. But I thought it was so interesting. Of course, Harris did not come out and address her crowd at HQ tonight or overnight your time, sent someone else to say, sorry, lads, go home, we'll come back and have a conflab tomorrow. What was the strategy there? Did the Democrats actually think they were going to win and were so blindsided by the fact that it didn't happen that they didn't quite know how to react to the result?
Yeah, there may be an element of that, but there also may be an element of the fact that it was late at night. You want to be on national television. You want to be able to speak to all Americans. And people in Wisconsin, they're in bed at midnight. They're not watching their television. Also, remember, I think if you look back 4 years ago, the results were not announced till Friday or Saturday. So I don't think people really anticipated that the results would be out that same night. That wasn't the most likely scenario. And you want to have, you also want to be able to thank your partisans who have worked so hard on your campaign and have them together in the room when you give a speech like that. This has to have been absolutely exhausting for both presidential and vice presidential candidates and their core staffs. Taking a few hours to go home, have a good night's sleep, and come and address the nation properly, that's fine.
Stephen, Trump now has 10,000 staffer positions to fill. Famously, in 2016, during the first Trump administration, he was an outsider. He wasn't supposed to win in the first place, and there was quite a scramble for him to fill those seats. Where's the sense that you get the majority of those will be filled by now? I imagine most of them are already spoken for, carved up by the power brokers.
Well, you're right. In 2016, I think there was a very different approach. Trump did bring in quite a few loyalists that filled the ranks of those positions, but particularly at defense, at state, some of those other key national security positions, he tried to bring in really grandees of the party, and that in the end didn't work for him. He ended up cleaning house on a lot of those positions. I suspect this time he'll have more settled loyalists with experience from the prior campaign. Also, you have organizations like the Heritage Foundation that have been vetting candidates. Now, I know that Trump has disavowed the Project 2025. That was probably good politics for the campaign. But J.D. Vance was one of the authors of that. So obviously the party and the team around him was very much involved with the Heritage Foundation and Project 2025. And that vetting process for thousands of candidates has been ongoing for some time.
Well, Stephen Hendricks, I know it's very early in the morning there. We really appreciate you joining us here tonight, our time. Thanks so much for your insights.